In response to her predicament, Rachel devises a strategy in verse 3. She said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her that she may bear on my knees, that but through her I too may have children." In the context of ancient culture, such arrangements were not uncommon. A surrogate relationship of this nature carried legal and family significance, allowing Rachel to claim any offspring as her own. This plan reflects social customs at the time in this area of Mesopotamia, where a barren wife might offer a maidservant to a husband to produce heirs. The phrase "bear on my knees" suggests a symbolic act where the newborn would be counted as Rachel's child legally and emotionally. Although it appears unusual, I suppose, to modern readers, we have different ways of dealing with some of these same things. This practice, aligned with certain ancient laws and customs, is documented in the region, not only in the Bible, but in other ancient documents. And here's the thing. We do it differently, but we still reach out to try and help people in those situations. Spiritually, while Rachel looks to Bilhah to solve her distress, the passage, it implies that this is not the way to do it. This is not how people get God's blessings. We don't make the decisions. Later biblical narratives emphasize that the Lord himself fulfills the promises in his time. You look at Luke chapter 1 and verse 13 and have a good think about that. Yet here Rachel's approach sets the stage for more complex family dynamics, demonstrating how human attempts to control destiny, well, they lead to tension and, yes, definitely, to rivalry. In verse 4, we see the plan move forward. So he gave him, that's Jacob, her maid Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. You have to ask how Bilhah felt about this, but that's not actually part of the passage, is it? Rachel delivers Bilhah to Jacob, formalizing this surrogate arrangement in a manner that grants Bilhah the recognized status of a wife, albeit a subordinate one. By taking Bilhah as his wife, Jacob continues the pattern which began when he married Leah and Rachel. Although polygamy was practiced by quite a few biblical figures, the resulting jealousies and complications frequently recorded, really they do give us a cautionary tale, don't they? You see, Rachel's plan, though culturally permissible, introduces a new storyline into Jacob's household, complicating an already confused and difficult and tense situation. From a biblical perspective, introducing additional partners into the marriage often leads to interpersonal strife and spiritual challenges. If you really want to go and have a look at something else, 1 Kings 11 and verse 41, it'll give you something else to have a think about here. Here we see how human attempts to force resolution to childlessness can disrupt family unity and create future issues. And I think that's the thing that we need to keep in mind as well. The future has something to do with this. Yet the Lord's redemptive purposes can still unfold despite these complicated scenarios, as we will see through the tribes that come from Jacob's children. Anyway, verse 5 tells us that Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. This marks the success of Rachel's plan from a purely practical standpoint, as Bilhah's children will be credited to Rachel, thus alleviating some of her shame. In the ancient Near East, producing heirs was a critical part of securing one's own legacy. This birth, though momentous for Rachel, also adds to the complex nature of the family's lineage. Jacob now has another heir, one who falls under Rachel's umbrella, but it remains biologically Bilhah's child. It's going to get really confusing, isn't it? The competition between Rachel and Leah now extends to the maids as well, reflecting how rivalry can spur individuals to desperate actions. Spiritually, while this answer to Rachel's longing might seem to validate her plan, it underscores the profound workings of God through the broken human families. Even when people use flawed methods, God can bring about his purpose. He brings it back to his own purpose, as he did through many of Jacob's sons who became fathers of the tribes of Israel. Now, the Lord's sovereignty, that's another mouthful, the Lord's sovereignty stretches beyond human conventions, and he weaves all of the circumstances into his plan. When the child arrives, Rachel acknowledges God's role, exclaiming in verse 6, God has vindicated me and has heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore, she named him Dan. This vocal recognition of divine intervention contrasts with her initial response or initial approach, doesn't it? Where she sought to solve the solutions through social custom. The name Dan is closely related to the Hebrew word, which is conveying the idea of judging or vindicating. Rachel feels vindicated in her rivalry with Leah. Her declaration, God has heard my voice, suggests that her prayers for a child, even through Bela, have at last been answered. She believes this child proves that her cause before God has been heard and approved. Yeah. Theologically, the name of Dan foreshadows how God often redeems tumultuous situations for his purposes. Even in these human struggles and jealousy, the child becomes part of God's unfolding plan for Israel. It reminds believers that God hears and intervenes in the affairs of his people. And sometimes in unexpected ways. We're going to carry this on next week. Bless you.